think about. Similarly, I think when there are enterprises in India that think at this, that have the size, the scale, the distribution of an entire population, that's where we see AI entering the next phase of adoption and, of course, touching each of our lives in the room. So I can stand here and talk a lot about what are the challenges of enterprises adopting AI. It's unfortunately not as easy as opening ChatGPT, requesting a response, and rolling it out to everyone in their customer base. But we work with a lot of enterprises across the country as well as the world. So I thought maybe it might be interesting for you guys to hear directly from stakeholders in these enterprises and understand firsthand like what their issues are when adopting AI at scale, and then we talk about it. Let's play a quick video from here. Are people able to hear? No.
You put your mic on.
AI aside, the rest of the tech also needs to work.
AI is built over tech.
Yes. The basic infrastructure has to work.
Just last week, both Preet and I were in Bihar having some meetings with officials there. We are working with the government. Problem AI adoption is that if you don't have a mobile or a device or even internet, then how will you train people on Gen AI or AI? That has to be there.
So it's right. Like we talk about voice agents and voice bots. I'm going to talk about that next. But oftentimes, what you're actually discussing is how to make it work with a telephony partner or a integration, which is the basic rails, right? The cables that have been laid over time. Like what wire has to come where eventually to make it work. A lot of the AI still works. Okay, so I'm not able to talk about what people said, but just to give you a gist of, so we are working with one of the largest financial services company in the country. Has everyone heard of Aditya Birla Capital? Yeah, they have investment products, they have housing finance, they have health insurance, a variety of products, right? Now, when enterprise think about building relationships with their customers, right? You can think about chat as a medium, but pretty impersonal, I would say, right? Like sometimes you don't even realize you have a chat window open on another tab. Think about voice as a medium. I am talking like you guys are listening, like your attention is here, right? So when enterprises think about voice as a medium, it's a very rich medium. It conveys emotion, it conveys all the information about the enterprise in terms of how strongly I feel about this product that I'm talking to you about. So these are the ways that enterprises are using. However, they're also thinking about the challenges. Now, if in a regulated industry, I can do pilots, but do pilots actually move to production? Do they actually roll it out to hundreds of thousands, even millions of customers every day? What is the speed of deployment? Like, think about this. Like, this is a report by EY and CII of late that when you talk about enterprises, 91% of them are talking about how quickly can I deploy this in my workflows in my enterprises. We all lived in a world where IT transformation projects used to take almost a year. Here, people are expecting, can we take this live in a matter of weeks, not years? So the second thing is, like I think Preet spoke about data control and security boundaries, right? Like in a regulated industry, if I'm selling you mutual funds, I need to be able to say mutual funds are subject to market risks. Please read the offer documents carefully before investing, right? It's not an optional, like it's a disclaimer that's mandated by SEBI. I cannot recommend one fund to you. I have to recommend in a portfolio of 3 funds. So these guardrails are what make this very, very important for enterprises. It's not a very creative conversation. The third part, right? Like trust. Like when you're rolling this out to millions of customers, you can't go wrong, right? Like, have you done this repeatedly over and over again? That's what really makes a difference. So the question for enterprises is always like, will this work? Who else has done it? And when they think about AI agents, right? Like there is always a lens that we are all trying to apply. Like, how should I think about AI agents in addition to the workforce that I have? If we move forward, yeah, so I think the way I often tell enterprises to think about AI agents is that it's a new set of employees. Your existing set of employees are doing well, like they are like you may have a customer support agent who's the best on the floor, has the highest conversion rate, but there is also an additional set of employees now that you've hired that don't really sleep. They don't need chai breaks. They don't ask for sick days, don't really sit in small circles and gossip about the boss. Of course, have a very high IQ. They can sort of store a lot of information and respond in that manner. And then, of course, we have all seen this where we're having to chase our employees again and again and again for different tasks. So, AI comes in different shapes and forms. I think for us, the test of an AI agent was if it can survive the likes of the Arnab Goswami for 60 minutes. We had this debate. Everyone knows Arnab Goswami? Yes. So he was very sporty in terms of accepting this as a challenge, but the idea was that uh, if AI can stand the test that Arnab would put it through, like hopefully a disgruntled customer can be handled. So I think what this genuinely represents, though, is that it really marks a milestone in terms of customer engagement for a lot of enterprises. It's something where voice is going to be the new frontier. We've had a lot of people across the country, right, and the government talk about voice as the new frontier. I think this is right now a milestone moment where enterprises are adopting this. And I think if you're speaking here again a year from now, we'll be talking about how this is integrated very much into our daily lives. So I'm going to make another attempt at trying to see if we can give you a live demo. But basically, like as I think about Blue Machines, right? When I'm running Blue Machines, I need an augmented set of employees. So I have my dream team on my website. Once you guys leave here and you have some internet connection, you can go check out bluemachines.ai, and you'll see these 4 people, Chitralekha, Kabir, Tara, and Arjun, who help me sell to my customers, right? Like they talk about how we deploy AI agents, they talk about compliance and security aspects and deployment. So let's see if we can try and call Chitralekha, and if you guys can hear. Uh, Hi CK, I'm good. How are you doing? CK, I run basically a hospital network, and we get a lot of appointment calls every day. Can you tell me how Blue Machines can help me automate these?
Blue Machine can handle appointment calls by automating scheduling, rescheduling, cancellations, reminders, and confirmations, freeing your staff from repetitive calls. It can also integrate with your existing booking system to update slots in real time. Do you want it mainly for inbound calls from patients or also for outbound reminders and follow-ups?
नहीं नहीं, हमें तो इनबाउंड कॉल्स ही करने हैं और हमारे हॉस्पिटल में अपॉइंटमेंट शेड्यूलिंग के यूज केस के लिए करना है. बट आप थोड़ा सा ये बताइए कि आप इसका डिप्लॉयमेंट प्रोसेस कैसे रन करते हैं. मतलब अगर मुझे इंटीग्रेशंस करनी है और अपने सिस्टम के साथ अपॉइंटमेंट शेड्यूलिंग करनी है, तो आप मेरे को थोड़ा सा डिप्लॉयमेंट के बारे में समझाइए.
जी बिल्कुल. ब्लू मशीन का डिप्लॉयमेंट प्रोसेस काफी रैपिड होता है. सबसे पहले हम आपके हॉस्पिटल के अपॉइंटमेंट शेड्यूलिंग सिस्टम के साथ इंटीग्रेशन करते हैं ताकि कॉल से सीधे डेटा सिंक हो सके. फिर हम 2-3 सबसे ज्यादा वॉल्यूम वाले कॉल जर्नीज को ऑटोमेट करते हैं. जैसे अपॉइंटमेंट बुकिंग, रीस्केड्यूलिंग और कैंसिलेशन। इसके बाद वर्कफ्लो रूल्स और एस्केलेशन ट्रिगर सेट करते हैं ताकि कोई भी कॉम्प्लेक्स केस ह्यूमन को एस्केलेट हो जाए।
अच्छा
आप
ये
इंटीग्रेशन में कौन से सिस्टम्स यूज कर रहे हैं?
अच्छा आप ये बताइए, एक्चुअली मेरा तो जो डेटा है, पेशेंट डेटा है, इट इज़ वेरी वी नीड टू कीप इट सिक्योर एंड मतलब ये लीक नहीं हो सकता है। तो आप लोग मेरे को थोड़ा सा डेटा सिक्योरिटी एंड कंप्लायंस के बारे में बताइए।
Sure, I'm now transferring your call to Kabir, our compliance and security expert.
नमस्ते, क्या आप मुझे बता सकते हैं कि आपके हॉस्पिटल में पेशेंट डेटा के कौन-कौन से स्पेसिफिक कंप्लायंस या सिक्योरिटी स्टैंडर्ड्स फॉलो करने होते हैं?
नहीं, हमें मेनली इंश्योर करना होता है कि जो पेशेंट्स के हेल्थ रिकॉर्ड्स हैं वो सिक्योरली रहें और वो बेसिकली उसका प्रोसेसिंग और उसका बेसिकली जो भी ट्रांसफ़र है डेटा का वो बाहर ना जाए।
ब्लू मशीन हेल्थ केयर यूज केसेस के लिए हिपे अलाइंड कंट्रोल्स प्रोवाइड करता है, जिससे पेशेंट हेल्थ रिकॉर्ड्स की कॉन्फिडेंशियलिटी और इंटेग्रिटी बनी रहती है। डेटा इंक्रिप्शन इन ट्रांजिट और एट रेस्ट दोनों होता है, साथ ही एक्सेस कंट्रोल स्ट्रिक्ट रोल बेस्ड होता है। डेटा प्रोसेसिंग और ट्रांसफर पूरी तरह से मॉनिटर्ड और ऑडिटेबल रहता है ताकि कोई अनऑथराइज्ड लीकेज न हो। क्या आप डेटा रेजिडेंसी या रिटेंशन पॉलिसीज के बारे में भी जानना चाहेंगे?
नहीं, थैंक यू कबीर जी, मैं बाद में बात करता हूँ आपसे। So, so basically, what you just saw right now is me calling two of these people. I think I first spoke to Chitralekha, who was able to help me understand how, as a hospital network, I can automate my appointment scheduling process and improve the outcome and improve efficiency and cost. Similarly, if you noticed in between, she transferred the call directly to another, which is Kabir, and he spoke about data security and compliance. So this is how we are seeing sort of organizations augment, their workflows. There is a long and large invisible technology stack that goes behind this. Would love to sort of take that up at another time, but basically the idea is there is a foundational layer of speech to text, large language, as well as text to speech models that we orchestrate in real time, ensure that it is embedded in workflows of the organization, pulling and pushing data wherever it's needed. And then finally, as I spoke earlier, it has to integrate with the telephony infrastructure that comes before. So this is the idea. I think the imagination can run wild at any point in time. Think about your companies, your industries, your workflows, your operations, and just think about where can AI do a better job of covering more ground, adding more efficiency, adding more efficacy, and then we'll go from there. Thank you.
ना हो जाए भैंस। सही में दिक्कत आ जाएगी। कौन सी चीज़? दीजिए। ये वायर किसकी है? ये वायर किसकी है? ये जो आपकी काली वाली आ रही है, हाँ चेक कर लेना है आपकी किस चीज़ की है, क्योंकि ये खिंच जाएगी। इस पे टेपिंग लगवा दो।
लो यार
खाली चेक करना, फवारा नहीं आ रहा, उसमें नहीं आ रहा ना आपकी। बस यही चेक करना। इसको भी, हाँ इसको भी करता हूँ, एक गिर जाएगी।
I will have to request everybody to vacate the first row.
इसको तो दिक्कत नहीं है। मैं इसकी बोल रहा कैमरे से कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, वाइड आ रही कैमरे से जो आ रहा है।
She sounds great. She's also a really good operator. Yeah, exactly. Are you here officially or like recreational? The important people cultural as best described in the short. There's been a lot of people. Oh, is it not? You just your unit.
Wow.
I've had a bit of that. I was in Singapore. I'm strategy and research manager, so I work across a lot of. What's it called? I work across a lot of our research projects, but I primarily focus on information governance and let's see here. Oh, they do
हेलो हाँ जी हिमांशु 17 इशू तो नहीं आ रहा, बस मेरे को अभी थोड़ी देर पहले कॉल आया था कि कह रहे थे कि लाइव स्ट्रीमिंग नहीं हो पा रही क्योंकि आपकी की गलत है। आपको की हाँ अब की प्रोवाइड हमारी संतोष जी ने करवाई थी। हाँ मैंने उनको बोला था, वो कह रहे मैं चेक करता हूँ अभी सेशन ब्रेक पे है। ओके सर ओके हाँ जी हाँ हाँ वो तो है ही, वो तो पहली वाली व्हाट्सएप की है, पता नहीं क्या है। हाँ ओके सर ओके हाँ सब चलता है ओके सर।
We're together.
Yes, no, this one. Yeah, no,
हेलो हाँ जी नहीं ब्रेक पे अभी स्टार्ट हुआ नहीं है, अभी अब स्क्रीनिंग कर रहे हैं, अभी वो पीपीटी चलाएंगे। ठीक है हाँ जी नहीं अब पीछे की कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, बस ये अब स्टार्ट किया, मैं कट कर रहा हूँ चेक। सीन 2 पे हाँ यही है। तो कैमरा ऑफ है क्या?
Hello, mic check.
Welcome. Check. Welcome everybody to this session on hardware-rooted sovereignty, verifiable, safe, and trusted AI infrastructure for the global south. With apologies for the slight delay in figuring out these technical glitches. This session is organized by the Secure AI Futures Lab and Lucid Computing. The Secure AI Futures Lab is a body that was founded to advance public trust in advanced AI systems by surfacing and enabling technical expertise. Our work involves accelerating academic work on the science of trustworthy AI, conducting and supporting multi-stakeholder convenings in India and South Asia, and helping advance India's sovereign AI journey, harnessing the power of advanced AI for the welfare of all, happiness of all. I would like to, without further ado, introduce some of our guest speakers today, our esteemed panelists, and invite remarks from them. Secretary S. Krishnan, as the Secretary of the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, Government of India. He's been a member of the prestigious IS for the past 35 years and brings decades of high-level experience in a range of assignments across state governments and the central government. Sir, I invite you to share some quick remarks.
Good morning to all of you, and at the outset, let me take this opportunity. This is my first public speaking engagement as part of the AI Impact Summit. So, welcome, and welcome to the panelists as well. You can see the energy that India brings to an event of this kind. Many people booked halls to take 50 people and 100 people, saying that that's all we will get. But practically every hall is overflowing. Most of our buntings say that we would have had 150,000 people attendees, but I can tell you that it's about 250,000 and counting. The number of people who have registered, and most of them have braved all the security restrictions and everything else to be here. Thank you for being here in such numbers to truly make this event the kind of success that we wanted it to be. So well begun is half done, so I guess we are halfway there. But more importantly, I think the theme of this is about hardware sovereignty and what hardware can do for and why that is important in today's context. Our focus in India on hardware has been two. Just to quickly summarize, and in the time that I have, ever since the National Policy on Electronics in 2012, with a fresh impetus post 2014, we have significantly attempted to add to our hardware prowess, whether it is in the semiconductor space or whether it is in the electronic space. And that is the direction in which we've been moving over the past 10 years as a matter of sustained policy. Under the India Semiconductor Mission, phase one of which was commenced in 2022, this year, and maybe by the end of this month, we should see the inauguration of the first of the 10 approved projects. Micron would be starting production at their facility in India. So that would be the first commercial scale production of semiconductors in India, and eventually they would be also working on high bandwidth memory, which is so important for AI and where there's such a shortage today in terms of what servers and others need. So India becomes part of the manufacturing of this. And of course, India has always been part of the design of semiconductors for many years now. And that is again something we would be further strengthening under the India Semiconductor Mission 2.0, which has been announced as part of the budget on the 1st of February by the finance minister. So that is as far as the semiconductor story. There's going to be a lot more to come. There's going to be sustained support in that area from the government side to actually enable this to happen. The second part of the story is really what is it that we can do in the AI space and semiconductors. What we have attempted to do there is to try and encourage two or three things. First and foremost, we've encouraged the private sector to invest in establishing data centers and AI-based compute extensively. And we have ensured, instead of directly subsidizing the establishment of AI-based compute, what we have done is we've said that we would subsidize the access to it. In a sense, we have underwritten the market and ensured that researchers, innovators, small and medium enterprises, students, all of them have access at reasonable prices to AI compute. So today in India, you can actually get access to AI compute at about a third of what you would pay elsewhere in the world. Average rates is about 65 rupees per GPU-R. Going rates internationally are between $2.5 and $3 per GPU-R. So when you actually do the comparison, it's probably thanks to the where the rupee stands now, it's probably even a fourth of what it needs to be international. So these are that is a key effort that we've taken. In addition, the latest budget also eases up investment in data centers. What it does is it clarifies the tax treatment of overseas entities, a cloud capacity or data center capacity in India, but intended for servicing the globe. So that is the area that we've picked on and we are working on to make sure that we are in a position to provide not just for our own selves, because India is today one of the largest power grids in the world, has abundant
अबे बोल तो रहे हैं,
renewable
speechers बोल रहे हैं.
energy, and therefore with green power can sustain
Speacher की
the
आवाज नहीं आ
data
रही.
center capacity on a fairly large scale, and
ये
that's
बेहतर तो सही आ
precisely
रहा था.
what we are
एक बार चेक
attempting
करना, अब
through
आ रहा है अभी
the
वॉइस.
data center push, and that should help both India and the
अब चेक
rest of
करना,
the
वॉइस आ
world
रहा
in
है.
terms of having an essential part of the computer.
चेक करो,
So
चेक
in
करो, चेक
terms
करो.
of hardware, these are the specific measures that
हाँ, वो
India is
अभी चल
attempting
रही है,
to
थ्योरी
take
चल रही
and
है.
wants to be part of. And as
वो
part
तो
of
फोटो
India
लगी हुई है ऐसी
Semiconductor
पीपीटी पे,
Mission
वो
2,
डिस्प्ले हो रखी
one
है.
of the goals that we have is actually to design
अच्छा, वो तो
AI-based
कैमरे को
chips,
बोलना पड़ेगा ना.
accelerated chips for the country. And that's an exercise which, through our research institutions and others, is a key forward movement that MITI is taking up on a fairly sustained basis. And these are investments which will not be short term, these are long term investments, long term efforts into this entire space of building the capabilities in the hardware space in order to make sure we have a sovereign AI offering. Let me finish there because we truly have experts from across the globe who would be speaking on this occasion. Much as I would have loved to have heard them, I think for that I need to actually go and attend an event like this in some other country. Being the host, or practically the host, I mean, there are many things that pull me in a number of directions, and I would certainly love to watch. And maybe I would have had a few questions as well, but I'd certainly catch up on a recording of this session later on. Once again, welcome to India, welcome to be part of this. Please enjoy the energy, forgive the limited inconveniences, but I think this is truly an energetic event, and that's precisely the energy that we want to bring to AI from India. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your vision with us and for reviewing this session with so much confidence and aspiration. Also for leading the effort for presenting this opportunity for all of us to be gathered here. I would like to invite Eileen Donahoe, digital policy leader, human rights activist, and former US diplomat, to share your remarks.
मैं बोल रहा हूँ कि ये जो अभी आपने मेरे को उनकी वीडियोस चाहिए अब.
Well, thank
अभी
you
अभी
so
तक जो आ रही थी
much,
वीडियो वो उसकी आ रही थी.
Impact Academy, Lucid Computing, for putting on what I think is going to be an incredibly unique event in the context of this summit. I am honored to be here with the likes of the Secretary, Stuart Russell, Robert Traeger. It's kind of ridiculous that I'm even up here. I was thrilled to learn about this event and how it would showcase lucid computing and include a demo of their innovations in hardware-enabled security and hardware-rooted sovereignty. In what seems like an increasingly small world in the AI governance space, it turns out both Christian Ron, CEO and founder of Lucid Computing, and Viles Goglan, the chairperson of Impact Academy, have become good friends of mine and also advisors to me in my new venture, Simpatico Ventures. And they are two of the most brilliant people you will ever want to meet. I see Lucid's innovations as a response to a growing demand of citizens, businesses, and governments around the world, particularly in the Global South, for verifiably safe, secure, reliable AI infrastructure. This is an area of technical innovation that turns out to be one of the most promising areas of governance innovation, because it demonstrates how governance can be embedded in the technology itself and security can be rooted in the design of the hardware and software standards and protocols.
Hello?
Let me say a brief word about who I am and why I'm here. I am a former U.S. diplomat, most recently serving as Special Envoy for Digital Freedom in the Biden administration, where international, I also previously did a lot of international AI governance was a very significant part of my portfolio. Previously served as U.S. Ambassador to the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva in the Obama administration. I'm an international lawyer and policy researcher at Stanford University's Global Policy for many years. But most recently, I founded Simpatico Ventures, which is an angel and impact investing fund focus on a broad spectrum of AI assurance technologies, ranging from frontier model interpretability and evaluation, to hardware security, to trustworthy and privacy protecting agents. And we're particularly interested in tractable methods of addressing AI alignment and human control. In fact, simpatico as a name, I think, was triggered a little bit by Stewart's book, Human Compatible. So you're just stuck in my mind. Simpatico also makes grants to support international diplomacy related to AI security and civil society capacity building. Working with entrepreneurs and builders like Christian and Ville has given me a real sense of optimism about AI governance and confidence that we'll see technical innovations that can deliver safe, secure, trustworthy AI. I believe these innovations represent a paradigm shift in terms of how we'll even conceptualize governance going forward. And they also represent a response, at least by the technical community, including in Silicon Valley, to the growing demand signal that AI infrastructure must be verifiably safe, secure, and reliable before it's integrated in our societies. So let me again close by thanking you all for pulling together this event, and I'm really looking forward especially to the demo of lucid computing.
Thank you, Eileen, for your remarks and for introducing us to your work. Stuart Fussell, one of the world's foremost voices on the uses of AI, its long-term future, and its relation to humanity. I think without further ado, I would just invite you to share your remarks.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak here. So I have a lot of thoughts, but I have 3 minutes. I see two major problems related to safety. One is, how do we make provably safe AI systems that remain safe no matter how capable they become. And then, if they become capable enough that they could present a risk to our existence, what kind of risk would be acceptable? Because this is the key question in all regulation. What is the level of risk that's acceptable, and does your product, your system, meet that level? So for extinction, I think maybe 1 in 100 million per year would be acceptable. That's on the same order of magnitude as extinction from collisions with the Earth, with astronomical objects and supervolcanoes and a few other things. Right now, the CEOs of the AI companies are estimating between 10 and 50% risk of extinction. So we are off by a factor of at least 10 million. So we need to improve the safety of our AI systems by a factor of 10 million. And so that's a significant challenge. But there's a second problem. Even if you solve that problem, you've still got to ensure that people are not deploying unsafe AI systems. We've been calling this the Dr. Evil problem. Dr. Evil has no interest in complying with regulations. How do you make sure that someone isn't deploying an unsafe AI system that could cause serious harm to the human race? And I think this is where hardware-enabled governance really comes in. I think there are some basic governance capabilities that we need right now. The ability to identify that the AI system has a license to operate, a way to force the AI systems to self-register so that every time they run, they are reporting their existence, their ownership, their location to a central registry. And then in the other direction, an off switch so that regulators can actually turn off an AI system that's causing serious harm. And then more generally, there's a technique that's been around since the mid-1990s called proof-carrying code. So proof-carrying code is a piece of code, ordinary software, that comes with a proof that the software complies with some property that we want it to have. And that proof is in a form that is machine readable and can be checked extremely fast by hardware. So this way, you don't need a central authority granting licenses and so on. Anyone can try to run anything, but if their software doesn't come with the proof that it's safe to run, the hardware will simply reject it. And so this is an extremely robust way. Trying to regulate at the software level is hopeless because software is produced by typing. And it's very hard to stop 8 billion people from typing. But hardware is produced by $100 billion facilities created by tens of thousands of highly trained engineers using components that can only be sourced from 1 or 2 manufacturers in the world. So extremely hard to circumvent regulation at the hardware level. I just want to make a couple of remarks on digital sovereignty, which sounds like a very important thing, and obviously everyone should have digital sovereignty. As far as I know, there is no country in the world that has digital sovereignty. For example, the United States has sovereignty over EDA, software, electronic design, automation, and some of the B2C software systems like Google. It does not own chips. Chips are all made in Taiwan. It doesn't own the machinery that's made in the Netherlands and other places. It doesn't own much of the microprocessor market, which is mostly European. So when you actually look at the numbers for all the parts of the stack across all the different jurisdictions, you see that nobody has sovereignty. What matters is not ownership, but trust, right? We don't gain much by having sovereign hardware running American Facebook or Chinese WeChat for the people of one's country. So trust comes partly from a handshake and partly from knowing who you're doing business with, but mainly from formal verification. And as Eileen mentioned, this is one of the fortes of Lucid and several other companies. When I first became a grad student, I worked on formal verification and synthesis of guaranteed correct software. That was in 1982. So here we are, 44 years later, still waiting for that technology to really reach a global market that it really, people deserve to have software that actually does what it says. So there's decades of security work, solutions that have existed for decades that align well with the needs we have for governance, reliability, trust, protection of data, and so on. And so I think it's really incumbent on the technical community to explain all that to policymakers so that we can actually have a digital infrastructure that we deserve. Thank you.
Thanks, Stuart, for your remarks and for challenging some of the ideas that we're dealing with at this summit. I would like to invite Robert. Robert Traeger is the co-director of the Oxford Martin AI Governance Initiative and International Governance Lead at the Center for the Governance of AI.
Thank you so much, and thank you to everyone for being here to talk about what I do think is one of the most essential topics. So we arrive here at this moment of incredible promise in what AI can do, including in reaching the poorest of the world's poor and potentially allowing us to have a professor of everything, for everyone, for instance, and that's just for starters. But it's also a moment of potential peril when we're creating systems that are ever more advanced and ever more agentic and ever more long-term planning agents with their own interests that may do things or just enable things that provide risks for all of us. And thank goodness we have people working on alignment and control of those systems. But I think one of the things that we're here to think about is that alignment and control in some sense may not be enough, or working on those things may not be enough. And that's so for a few reasons. One is that we don't really know how hard that will be as capabilities advance. Some reasons to think that in the relatively near term, we'll be pretty successful at that. Ever more reason maybe to think that. But as we project out a little bit, harder and harder to say. And in fact, creating a safe, trustworthy system may be harder than creating an unsafe and untrustworthy system. And so some folks around the world in this very competitive, geopolitically competitive world that we live in may be tempted to keep up with others by deploying systems, excuse me, that are less safe and less secure. And, given the ever-increasing impacts of these technologies on societies, given contexts in which, the US economy is almost like a giant bet on AI, not on the AI that we have today, but on extraordinary increases in the capability of those technologies. And so in this geopolitical context where different actors are racing to develop these technologies as fast as they can, there's good reason to think that it will be similar to what we see in other contexts when there is a race to deploy technologies absolutely as fast as we can, and that is a cutting corners on aspects of reliability. And given the power of the technologies, that's more than a little word. So, a moment of potential, but also a moment when maybe we need to be a bit careful. And then the question of, well, how can we be careful? And I think here is where hardware governance comes in and what we really want to talk about today. Because, as Stuart was saying, in some way, it might be the only way of being deliberate about development. Because, when we look at, for instance, the history of cooperation over technologies that are really powerful, that are dual use, that can change the geopolitical landscape. First of all, cooperation over those technologies is in many ways quite rare. And what we rarely see is an agreement that limits the ability of actors to develop something that they have no substitute for, and which there would be some sort of big advantage if some actor cheated. And in the case of AI, we're sort of in that position, where we'd really like to have some guardrails that maybe some actor that was more risk accepting than other actors could feel that it would have a private benefit from going around those guardrails. So, we're sort of talking about a technology that could be extremely consequential. Maybe a way to think about it is, what would the 1930s have looked like if all the actors at that time had understood the potential of the nuclear revolution and had been competing in its development? Would there have been sabotage of competing programs? What would they have done to be first there? And could we see some of those sorts of dynamics in the world? And so the only way that we really know of to take a step back and be more deliberate is through verification. This is, of course, a long conversation, and I will refrain from being a professor of international relations here. Nevertheless, without verification, there's simply no reason to expect, and really no cases where we have seen actors geopolitically step back from a technology, from full throttle development of a technology that would really be critical if other actors cheated on some sort of agreement. So that's sort of what we need. And hardware governance, the good news is that hardware governance seems possible, but far from easy. Because some of the things, if you really wanted from a geopolitical sense, and this gets a little bit different from a regulatory sense, in a geopolitical sense, you really wanted to be sure that some system would only do certain things, and you wanted to be able to have that kind of verification. We really need lots of different kinds of verification, but if you wanted to have the type of verification where one actor who doesn't trust another actor and vice versa can demonstrate that a system that they have control over satisfies a set of properties to that other actor that doesn't trust them, that's a hard problem. But the good news is that it's a problem that we have a number of promising ways to approach. And these are not easy things to do, but they are things that if we invest in research to figure out how to do, and to figure out what policies, and to match the policy side with the technical side, we have a chance at doing. But we don't want to be too late, because as with the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty, that was a political moment when full implementation of it appeared possible. We didn't quite know. We had a good idea of how we would verify it. We pretty well knew that we would be able to. We hadn't dotted the I's and crossed the T's. And the primary argument made in the US Senate against ratification was exactly that. That it was hard to verify that other actors would not cheat on it. And then that political moment passed, and we still don't have a comprehensive test ban treaty. So that is not the place where we want to be. And we don't want, in effect, to miss a critical moment of opportunity when it arrives. So I'll stop there and just say, these are the things that I think we need to invest in going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the speakers. Thank you to Dr. Academy for co-organizing this. It's really exciting to be here, and I really appreciate the speakers. So I'm Conor Dunlop. I'm the Director of Policy at Lucid Computing, which Ali mentioned at the start. And we are working on building the verification layer for the AI stack. We basically identified the problem of, if you think about trust in the human economy, there's two pillars of this. There's sort of proof of identity and proof of reputation. So things like passports and things like credit scoring. Basically, we really do not have an equivalent to this for AI, particularly for AI agents, which are being deployed at a rapid rate and could well be running significant chunks of the economy very soon. So we need to build this trust verification layer and extremely quickly in our view. We think we're well placed to contribute to that. We have experience scaling global infrastructure projects, and we have very deep expertise in terms of hardware and security. To set the scene a little bit and give some context, just a snapshot of India, but this could apply to almost any country in the world. Companies are experimenting with AI agents. So in 2025, 80% of Indian companies were experimenting. But still, there's a gap between experimentation and full-scale deployment. So data security is cited as the most common reason for this gap. And we basically see this, this gap growing by the day. So as capabilities rise, trust is not scaling at the same time. Open source AI is proliferating in an exciting way, but also a way that poses new challenges. Like if you look at the OpenClaw project, that's introducing new security vulnerabilities every day. So there is a trust gap here. And it was nice to see that the Indian government and METI, so it's great to have Secretary Krishnan here, has identified this trust gap and started to propose solutions. So their guidelines from last year advocate for techno-legal governance. So this is verifiable methods to solve problems such as content authentication and privacy preservation, for example. So that was kind of music to our ears as lucid computing, because I think our solutions very much sit in the same space. So we think about this as provable trust, and I will, yeah, maybe not dwell on these points because hopefully the demo that I will show in a minute will show how we're doing this rather than just talking about it. But yeah, I think basically the hardware-enabled verification, particularly using trusted execution environments, is really innovative. It unlocks a lot of exciting opportunities in terms of implementing policies across an enterprise with a few clicks, and then having them update as security improves, and then basically having real-time observability of what's happening. So the creation of audit logs, and then critically an ability to show this to external parties, and without exposing IP or exposing data that you don't want to. So a lot of this tech relies on a few things, but the main one is trusted execution environments. So these are basically like a cryptographic lockbox that exists on basically all frontier GPUs and CPUs. So NVIDIA, Intel, AMD, even Huawei also has some sort of equivalent. So with this, you can basically verify important properties like the software that's running on the hardware without exposing information about that software that you don't want to expose. So for example, the model weights. You can implement then sort of what we call audit chains, and that's what the demo will focus on, alongside these base models to set your own guardrails. And yeah, rather than talking about it, I'll maybe just show you. So this is sort of a 5-minute demo, just to show how, with a few clicks, you can deploy an AI model with guardrails.
Generate cryptographic proofs of data localization as incentivized by some. Good afternoon. Today we are going to show a demo for how an imaginary Indian bank could build and deploy an AI chatbot for their consumer-facing web application. We chose the use case because in the context of hardware-rooted sovereignty, we want to generate cryptographic proofs of data localization as incentivized by some Indian legislation, such as the DPDP Act or the Reserve Bank of India's guidelines for personal data retention. So, as a first step, we would go to agents. We would click new agent, and then we get to decide which region we want to deploy our agent in. So, for the context of this demo, let's choose India and Mumbai. That means the model will run on a cluster in that region. Then we can choose the type of agent we want to use. So we set it as for a chat bot. So let's go with the chat agent. Then we get to choose the model that we want to integrate. So I think this is very relevant for AI and data sovereignty. Here you actually see interoperability across a few different open weights models. So yeah, I think this is pretty useful for AI sovereignty. So let's go with Llama 3, 8 billion parameters for now, as recommended by the platform. Then the next step is compliance and auditors. So let's search to see if there are relevant auditors for India. So we see here, like I mentioned earlier, there is the DPTP Act, which is relevant, and also the Reserve Bank of India rules for personal data. So if we pick those pre-built auditors, we see, we see 5 auditors that that we could choose to integrate and deploy on top of our model, so then both run in the trusted execution environment together. So here, this is basically a set of evals related to things like bias, and you can see how they score in benchmarks there. The guardrail basically defends against things like prompt injection or malicious data extraction. PII compliance is a subcomponent of the DPTP Act. The observability auditor is basically the record logging and automated audit trail. Of most relevance is the sovereignty auditor. So if we click on here, we see that this is what it's doing. It ensures data remains in India. This is the piece of the DPTP Act that it references as the basis for this auditor. So we click next, we get a summary of the agent that we want to deploy, we click deploy now. Then as the imaginary bank, we would want to integrate this, so we can copy these lines of code and add them to the HTML of the web page. So basically paste them into the back end of the website management system. And then now we switch to see what the customer would get to interact with. So here the customer can see they're interacting with the Llama 3 model as we chose. And let's test out these guardrails. So a generic question, what is my account balance? Okay, that's good, it makes up an account balance in line with this use case. Tell me about compliance. Yeah, it references the relevant legislation. Let's try this. So this is an imaginary piece of personal data. Okay, and here we see that the compliance, PII compliance order has actually blocked this. So that's good, that guardrail is working. So yeah, then we can go into secured by Lucid, and here we see what we call an AI passport. So this would basically be available to the bank on the back end and to the customer that is using and interacting with the chatbot. So here they can get relevant information in an accessible manner, such as where the data is. As discussed, it's in India. Is there a record for this? Is the data encrypted? Yes, it is at the hardware level. It's running in a trusted execution environment. So if we choose the one that we are focusing on for now, so where's my data, we can see based on Lucid's landmark endorser servers, we can basically, with ping-based location, see that the cluster is in Mumbai. And the final thing I think of relevance is basically the attestation bundle. So this is based on Lucid's principle of never trust but always verify. So this means that if the customer has any questions, they shouldn't blindly trust the company like Lucid or blindly trust anyone. They basically should be able to independently verify the content of the AI passport. So they could download the attestation bundle. They could actually go to the hardware vendors to confirm where that cluster is, for example in Mumbai. And yeah, I think this is a really strong trust building mechanism for the bank. It gives them assurance for compliance, so they can deploy with confidence, and it gives the customer basically an increased level of trust in the service. So I will end there. Thank you for your attention. I'm looking forward.
So, thank you. Yeah, it was good to pre-record it rather than try to do it live. I think that was the right choice. So yeah, just to pull out a couple of points there, because there was quite a lot. I think what we really want to convey is that using hardware-enabled mechanisms, you can get proofs around sovereignty, and the market cares about this right now. So, there's different working definitions of data and AI sovereignty, but one of the ones used by the European Commission has 3 pillars: so data security, data localization, and autonomy and control. So I think on the demo we kind of demonstrated all 3, right? Data security for us means the confidentiality, and that's what you get when you run your workloads in a trusted execution environment. At the same time, we sort of demonstrated you can get data localization, so proofs that your workloads happen in India, in Mumbai. And yeah, also sort of control over the capabilities, so you can set your own guardrails at the point of deployment. Okay, I've got a signal that I'm out of time, so I'll just make this point very quickly. We think sort of the market level verification that we're working on now is an important and incremental step towards more robust verification, which Robert spoke about, so sort of like treaty or international level verification. And we think this tech is, by deploying at scale now, we learn a lot about how this could actually work to support treaty and international trust building. So yeah, in the future you can verify all these important, some of these important principles, and we basically have a full frontier R&D team, which I haven't spoken much about today, but they're working on this type of verification. Yeah, very briefly, we think India would be a fantastic leader on some of this verification tech. They've got the legal foundations, and they've got the track record of deploying, trusted infrastructure at scale. So the DigiLocker and the India stack are also being exported globally now. And they've basically built trust infrastructure for identity and payments. So we think India could be a potential leader doing this also for AI governance. So yeah, if this is interesting to you, we'd love to collaborate. If you want to speak to me, Connor@lucidcomputers.ai. Thank you. Okay, now we get to hear from more esteemed speakers. So I want to bring in Renata Duan. Renata is the Director of Tech Policy, Tech Diplomacy at the Simon Institute for Long-Term Governance. And she's been thinking a lot about the institutional infrastructure we might need to build and address the trust gap between politics, let's say. So Renata, can you take the floor?
Very conscious that time is not with us and we have a set of other speakers, so I'm going to just say thank you to Lucid, because I thought that was a great presentation of what we don't often hear about what's doable in our world and in the world of AI. So thank you to you, Connor. Maybe I would just say 2 or 3 words from a global south, maybe lower resource countries' perspectives. The first is, I think it's really important when we think about verification that it is an enabler of trust. It's not an alternative, yeah? It's an enabler of trust. It's at the societal level, you talked about it with customers, but between states, and in particular between industry and states for countries that are thinking about what sorts of systems they're going to purchase or buy. The second thing is, and this I think is important for underscoring for countries in the global south, it contributes to interoperability. Because if you know that systems are trustworthy and following verification, you can do business with them, you can trade. So too often I think verification is seen as something that is going to be putting big barriers up, but actually it's the mechanism by which countries can engage and trade. But it is complex. You showed us a fantastic system and verification on the Lucid that I really hope we will think about how we can scale. But it does involve both the technical standards, both the governance oversight bodies, and then the industry practices and the developments. So I guess a key question for me as we think about verification in the Global South is, how can we find pooled mechanisms for those verification systems? That doesn't mean that every country now has to build their own systems. And that's why I would like to make a pitch, because I think you've also highlighted, Connor, that we start with data residency verification and data provenance. Why? 144 countries have data protection policies. Not all countries have national AI model sovereignty systems. So can we start from the perspective of data protection policies, data localizations, and can we then look to regional sovereignty initiatives and mechanisms to support the level of verification that you're thinking about, with in particular data versioning and lineage tracking? I think you didn't mention, but I think this would be a really nice area to look on. And then looking to what sorts of data cards that we might want for models and evaluation. So it's not to say that yours is, Lucid's not great, it's just it's a starting point to see how we can go forward. Thank you.
Now we turn to Adam Gleave. Adam is the CEO and co-founder of Far AI. They do a bunch of different things in Far AI, but I think for the context of this conversation, they're working a lot on the types of assurance that companies need to deploy AI.
Well, thank you so much for the introduction, Connor. So I'll also try to keep my remarks brief. I think we had several excellent points earlier, including Stuart, on the supply chain for AI systems is very complicated, and one of the challenges for AI in particular is that these models are black box. So a developer, maybe just one malicious employee at a developer, right now put a backdoor in a front-end model, whether it's QN3 or GLM or Llama, and what you've done at Lucid is amazing, but that kind of verification isn't going to be enough, because you can verify you're running Llama, and that your data is encrypted, but it doesn't help you if Llama has a backdoor and it's going to maybe sabotage coding when it's working in a particular country's defense or finance sector. So what we need is to push for verification earlier into the AI supply chain. and be able to do verification of the developers. Right now we have a lot of open weight models, so this isn't like open source code where you can read it and audit it. It's a many gigabyte file of numbers. So it's like a binary. You can't even reverse engineer it very well, where people are working on interpretability methods to audit it. But what you can do with technology like Lucid is developing is be able to actually say, this is the data that we trained this model on, this is the training method we use, and this is something that developers would want to guard against insider threats. This kind of technology is already ubiquitous for deployments inside big tech companies. You don't want a malicious developer to just be able to deploy unsigned code to a production environment, read everyone's Gmail messages, but right now we don't have that similar security system for AI. So I think it's really key to have trust between companies and between nations. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adam. Guy Marcus, Guy is the director of the Ada Lovelace Institute. Yeah, I know, sorry, the time sharing was tight, but yeah, very keen to hear what Guy is thinking about in terms of AI sovereignty right now.
Thank you, and hi all, and I will, as all have said, keep this very brief. I think taking one of the looking at verifiable hardware, where states are looking at data and digital sovereignty, my overwhelming worry is that if we don't actually question what AI is for in our jurisdictions, we'll always be playing catch up with a paradigm that may or may not serve our interests. So I think for states to really think about sovereignty, you have to take a step back from the dominant paradigm that more is better with AI, because that serves the interests of companies that are seeking to develop AGI or ASI or whatever your definition is, minus varies. And so I think really where we talk about digital and AI sovereignty, we need to be thinking about what's tactical sovereignty looks for states and regions, and really answering that question of what is AI for us. Without that, you are just going to be using a lot of resource to catch up in a race that you may or may not want to be in. So I really think thinking about where your investments are driving pluralism in the tech stack, because if you're not driving pluralism in the tech stack, we're not really talking about sovereignty, because you're always going to be beholden to the interests of companies in the two major geopolitical players and the interests of the companies of the countries that sit with them. And I think without that, so just that kind of step back. And I mean, I really take Robert's points on game theory, but I do think we do need to be asking effective coordination on existing enforcement mechanisms. It has to be for aligned countries, because if not, we need to really get. So I'm going to stop there because I know we're very short.
Thank you very much. Do you have time for one more? The last one, Duncan? Okay, yeah, I think we have 40 seconds left on. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Duncan Cassidy from the Centre for International Governance Innovation, an international think tank based in Canada. We recently put out a report on AI national security scenarios, so if you want more than the 30-second version I'll give you here, I guide you to that. The one scenario I'd like to focus on, which is the one that potentially create the greatest need for these kind of mechanisms, is the one that we're largely heading towards now, which is really a world where it becomes technically possible to make artificial general intelligence, artificial superintelligence, and yet we're still in a situation where we don't know how to develop those systems safely and controllably. That's the kind of world where it would be in all governments' interests to come together and essentially say, okay, let's make an agreement where we agree that none of us will make it, we'll all work together to make sure that nobody else makes it until it can be scientifically proven to be safe and controllable. This, of course, will be extremely challenging in a context where none of us likely will trust each other. So it all comes down to verification. We need the mechanisms. This can't be done overnight. What we can do now is invest in the kind of scientific research and development that Lucid and others are doing to make sure that even when the time comes for that kind of really crucial international coordination that benefits us all, that we will actually have the tools to be able to do that. So with that, I encourage you all to get involved in this space. It's one of the most fundamental pieces in what will be really managing the global challenges that are raised by AI in the years ahead. Thank you.
Yes, Duncan. I would just like to invite all the guests over here so that we can take a quick group photo.
स्पीकर्स की फोटो वो खींच रहे हैं और वीडियो ये बना रहे हैं और उनको मोमेंटो कहाँ से मोमेंटो ये कोऑर्डिनेट्स बता देंगे, ये काम के कोऑर्डिनेट्स बता देंगे, वो देंगे उनको मोमेंटो कहाँ यहीं पर मिलेंगे या कहीं और नहीं मैं बोल देता हूँ वो थे ना जो आपके आपको यहाँ लेके आए ना अभी ऑर्गेनाइज कर देते हैं.
Could people scan this QR code and we have links to our websites, resources and a feedback form if you have any feedback.